Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. I am your host, Staci J. Dempsey, and the J is very important because it does bring the joy. I have with me, as always, the other daughter and the dad, Jennifer Dempsey. Jack Dempsey, say hello to everyone.
Hi, guys. How are you? All right.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. All right. So, yeah. So let's just make sure that we let everyone know that we are practicing social distancing. So none of us are in the same room. We are actually, I think, technically in different states. So we are recording this podcast with the help of some wonderful technology that is much different than what we are used to using to record our podcast. So we hope that all of our listeners will be super understanding if we have just a little bit of a hiccup. But nevertheless, today on our podcast, we are very, very excited and very grateful to have our second guest, our very first female guest, who is a mom, a wife, an entrepreneur. She is someone that I have technically known for many years. She has worn many hats in those years that I have had the pleasure of knowing her. We have with us today Misty Solomon, owner of Devour Desserts. Misty, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are very excited to have you. As we, before we hit record, we were having some good conversation and sharing with Misty how we have come to her shop many a times, enjoyed many of her desserts. So we're just super happy and super excited to have you included in our podcast today. So thank you for taking the time out, because even though we are in the midst of life looking a little bit different than what we're accustomed to, life is still busy, right?
Very, yeah. So I haven't stopped.
Yeah, I know. That's what you were mentioning right before we started talking, was that even though we're living through COVID-19 right now, work is still moving along pretty well for you, or pretty busy, I should say.
Yes. Yeah. And well, really, I can't complain at all. I'm in a unique position that I'm an essential worker, and my business is essential because it's food related. So, early on, we had a little bit of a pushback from some people that, thought it's strange for a dessert shop to be open. Also, I heard people complaining about like Rita's Water Ice was open, but I'm really glad that, we made the decision to just stay. We were the very first business, I believe, in Gloucester County to close our storefront to the public. So we had done that in advance of, the state's recommendation, or really requirement, that you shut your storefront down, and that we, had curbside pickup exclusively for the first 6 weeks. We just reopened the last weekend. Right.
That's excellent. Well, I definitely want to talk to you about how you've kind of, changed your business model just a little bit to, kind of conform to what COVID-19 is setting forth for all of us. But I really want to start kind of towards your very beginning of Devour Desserts, which, you've always done, but you had kind of had like a main, like a primary job before that. So can you talk to us a little bit about like where you were in that, and then doing Devour out of your home, and maybe how you decided to take it from out of your home to, I'm going to go get a storefront, I'm going to get people, I'm just going to do it.
I will try to condense this hour story into the shortest one possible. But yes, basically, I started my career in direct sales. I was with a company called Tastefully Simple for over 11 years. I ran a multi-million-dollar team, had hundreds of consultants on my team all over the really tri-state area, and also all in different parts of the country as well. Did really well with that. I was just ready to move on. So I left that business, joined another direct sales company. And in the midst of that, in between, really, while I was still doing Tastefully Simple, I always sent gifts to my leaders. I had a lot of high-level leaders that, made me a lot of money. So I would send them gifts if they had a promotion or a death in the family or just anything. And I always sent them edible arrangements. It was my go-to. And towards the end of my time at Tastefully Simple, I was really just getting irritated that, first of all, if I was spending $150, not everything was dipped in chocolate. I thought that was absurd. I didn't really understand the point of it.
Right.
And so I just thought, like, they're underserving their customer, basically, is where I was coming from. So at some point in time, my husband needed a gift for clients. He was like, hey, can you order me one of those arrangements? And I said, you know what? Like, I've got some time. Let me just play with, chocolate and fruit and see what I can come up with. So I spent the entire night, I did everything that I could find in chocolate, sent him on his way. His customers loved it. And I was like, oh, well, that was fun. And I could get better at it. I was raised in the chocolate industry. My dad works for a company that imports cocoa beans and has ever since I was a child. So I was kind of, just naturally, he would bring home 30-pound blocks of chocolate. And I, had free reign of my kitchen when I was a child. Like there were no rules or restrictions on what time of, day I could bake cookies at 2:00 in the morning if I wanted. So I was really just always loving to make things, it was just always fun. So I made him that. They loved it, and I thought I could get better at it. So I just did. I just started to play with fruit and chocolate and dipping things at home and started to make some platters. It was the beginning of Facebook. So, people were ordering things, but it was never my intention to start a business when I did that.
Wow.
Let me ask you, Misty, I know that you said you've been in different businesses. Have you always had a desire to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, for sure. I don't like people telling me what to do is probably the main reason. I always think I can do things better than everyone else. So it really is just, puts me in a position that's just a natural.
And so my understanding of, the direct sales is that, having 100 or so consultants that are working with you, side by side and underneath you and things like that. I mean, it would lead me to believe that you're making some decent money.
I don't think there was ever a year where I made more than $35,000.
Okay.
In my actual commission from my team sales, which really, if you're having a team that sells over $1 million every single year, that's insane.
Right.
And there was a lot of work, but it was a really great building block for me to learn how to run my own business and run my own team and, be a leader of people. And they had very high level business mentoring that they would bring in these top-notch companies and take us away for 3-4 day retreats and teach us. So it was a great experience for me outside of the money. Gotcha.
And so I'm glad you shared that, because that was going to be my next question was, besides the money, what were the things that being in that direct sales kind of taught you? And it sounds like it really gave you a good foundation of, let me absorb all of these things. Let me practice all these things. And so then when was the moment that you decided to, it sounds like you grew up with the chocolate, you like to create things. And so then you just continued that on into your adult life and while you were doing Tastefully Simple and.
Yeah. Because it was very food related. So the transition to Devour out of my home was not that far of a stretch. And once I started posting, people started ordering, it came on really quickly. So it was an easy transition for me to just add it on as a side hustle. It wasn't like I was still at Tastefully Simple. I was was really losing my passion at that point. Then I joined another direct sales company and still was, kind of doing Devour, but I was at that time like a health and nutrition coach selling diet shakes and also making dessert, on the side. But I really needed the diet shakes because I ate way too much dessert. So I did that for a little while, but I will say that the transition really came after I left the diet, nutrition company. I went to work I started to sell security systems and alarms. I did that for a little over a year. It was a completely new direction for me, but I'm a natural salesperson, so it was a good fit. And I was with them for probably over a year. Long story short, I got sent on a commercial project that was way outside of my league. Knew that I could win the bid, and went back to my company and said, listen, I know I'm new, but there's a lot of people here that will help me. Let me run point on this. I think I can get this account. So they were like, absolutely, go and do it. They let me run point on this account. I got the account. I worked on it for 7 months. And then when it came time for the commissions, they were short tens of thousands of dollars that they had decided 2 days before Christmas that they were not going to pay me the full commission, and just never told me. And also that they had helped me bid the job incorrectly. So the commission was closer to $2,000 instead of being over $20,000. So that was a real blow to me. However, it was the best thing that could have happened, because I had just signed a lease for Devour in the midst of all of the rumblings of that. But my intention was never to open like a store. I just wanted a place to get a kitchen outside of my house, because my dog was such a jerk that she was like trying to bite people that came to my house. So when that shift happened and that, occurred, and listen, I cried for an entire day. And then the next day I just picked myself back up and thought, you've been building other people's brands your whole entire life. You already signed a lease on this store. What are you going to really work 2 days a week at this store and continue to work for this company that obviously does not care about you at all? And it was, no hard feelings, I'll get that money back, tenfold in the future. And I just cut my losses, left, and, went on the journey of how now am I going to pay for the storefront, since I don't have the $20,000 in commission that I thought I was going to have to open it.
Right. Well, let me stop you right there, because we definitely want to know how you got the money to open that storefront, since you just signed the lease. But we're going to take a moment just to hear quickly from our sponsors.
Dempsey Weiss and Associates Insurance, located in Elmer, New Jersey, is a multi-line insurance agency successfully meeting the insurance and financial needs of business owners and individuals in New Jersey and Pennsylvania since 1989. J Faith Hair Studio, located just minutes outside of Philadelphia, is the place to go to become the best version of yourself.
There's already been 3 very valuable lessons that Misty has shared with everybody, and I don't want us to lose sight of them. Before I share those 3, I do also want to say it was one of the greatest days in the history of civilization when they called chocolate good for you.
Yeah.
Right? Chocolate has medicinal properties to it. So that was a great day when they said that. So, but the 3 things was, she talked about underserving clients, how she had noticed there was another business that was underserving their client. So that's a very important thing for people who are looking for entrepreneur opportunities to grab hold of, because one of the things that when people said, I'd love to have my own business or be an entrepreneur, and maybe you don't have a particular direction, begin to put your antennas up for businesses that are underserving their client, because that can be a great opportunity, especially for businesses that have maybe grown in size and now are focusing more on volume than on, client relationships or, customer service. So that, because what you want to look for is that gap. A lot of businesses are born out of that gap, whether it be, something that's not, a group of people that aren't being served at all, or somebody that's being underserved. So that would be one. The second one was Misty's story about when she's working for direct sales. She was working very hard, maybe not making as much money as she thought, but the building block. She saw it. This was a building block for something in the future. This was helping me build entrepreneur skills, business skills, leadership skills, how to run a team. So she recognized that this was just another step in that journey of being an entrepreneur. So again, very, very important. So for those people out there who are in a situation where you're a bit frustrated, take that step back and say, okay, but what am I learning right now? What, I might not be making the money I want to make, or there may be some other frustrations, but find what you are benefiting from, and there'll be a time when you're going to be able to use that, for something that is more of a passion. And then the third one was taking a setback, a real setback, and turning it into a positive. Looking at saying, hey, I really got treated poorly in this situation where I was expecting a big commission, didn't get it. But now it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because now I could really devote my full energy. So again, a third principle there is, and we've talked about this before, is there's a benefit in a setback. There's a benefit in an obstacle that you have to overcome. You just have to be like Misty and be able to have the ability to see that and use that as a fuel, for that next opportunity. So again, three very important entrepreneurial principles already in what Misty shared. So thank you, Misty. Very good.
Yeah, and I think it's I feel a lot of motivation, and it's like I took the day and cried about it. And then I got up tomorrow and said, all right, I'm going to figure it out, because I think that, including myself, I see myself in that. I've been there where it's like, this is like, I feel like my soul is crushed.
Yeah. I mean, you have to take the time. You got to take the time to feel those emotions. You can't just ignore it.
That's right.
Right. And so I've been in those moments where it's like, I feel defeated and crushed, and like my time has been wasted, and I just need to bawl my eyeballs out, and then I have to get up and go do it. I gotta go pick myself up. So I think that's an excellent,
take a step in a
new direction. So you bawled your eyeballs out, you picked yourself up, you went and you had the lease signed. And so what were the next steps? What were you thinking?
The next steps were me really understanding how much it was going to cost to open a business, because in my mind, on my little piece of paper that I had drawn out, I had predicted that $20,000 would be more than enough. And that was incorrect, because I had to build, a kitchen that needed 7 sinks, and the whole build out cost me $45,000 to get the store up and running, which a lot of people, would not expect that a small 1,200 square foot shop would cost that much money, to open. So that was definitely a challenge.
Did you have the cash up front, or did you have to take a loan, or how did that work out for you?
Great question. So I didn't. I did not have cash up front. I was really planning on using the 20 grand, and then I figured I could, just figure out the rest. I'm a jump first, figure it all out later kind of girl. So this sounds hokey and it sounds completely ridiculous, but I was working with a life coach at the time, and she was like, it was very, very much embedded in us at like Post-it notes and, affirmations. So I put a Post-it note in my dash of my car that said 45K. And I just, every time we get in my car, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I had this $45,000 that I needed. And it was a part of every time I got in the car, I would say that out loud. It was just repetition. And I borrowed like $10,000 from my parents and my in-laws, and $5,000 from someplace else. And I think I had $5,000 of my own money, and I was short this $25,000, and I really did not know how I was going to get it. And it was to the point where the construction, like I had to have more money, because the construction, it was either like there was a point where I was like, I have either wasted over $20,000 building this space out for nothing, or I'm going to find this other $25,000. At the time there was an investor that was had said that he was interested early on, and then was just dragging his feet and like not responding. So I once again had a complete breakdown, and was just in this place where it's like, do I pump the brakes, or is this a gas pedal moment? You know what I mean? And I was like, I woke up the next morning with clarity and was like, this is gas pedal. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And that night he called me and was like, I've got your $25,000 check. I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Meant to be. That's what we call it. Meant to be.
Who else has goosebumps right now?
I totally
Me,
do.
I have
Relate.
goosebumps.
I can totally relate.
Yeah.
And
Janet,
there's
we
something
need to.
so magical about this story. Like, I'm just living for this story because I think only an entrepreneur, someone who really, really is passionate about doing something, can relate to that story. Like, no matter what, I was the same way in my business. You know, I will take out every credit card I have to. Like, we will do what we have to do to get $25,000, and that's just amazing, because there's a lot of people that are scared to do that, or even to think that that's even capable
Or
of
to
that.
ask, or the asking, you know what I mean? Like, there was a point where I had to go back to my dad and ask for another $5,000. I think that was the gap in between getting the 25,000, and I did not want to do that. I did not want to go back to him and ask him for more money. So, and of course he was like, of course, like, just gave it to me. I was making a big deal out of nothing, but it was definitely the asking. Sometimes the asking is the hardest part.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. Well, and we need to also write down this quote of, is this a pump the gas? Well, how did you say it? Is this a pump on the brakes?
Yeah,
or is this a step on
gas pedal moment?
Gas pedal moment?
Nugget alert. Nugget alert.
Nugget alert. Nugget alert. Man, so good.
Love it.
Well, and we have talked about on this podcast about, ways to find money when you want to start your own business. And part of that is living lean. We cut back our expenses. We save what we have, what we need. We go to family members and pitch the vision to them. So as you mentioned, Misty, like, here I got to go back and ask my dad for something. I'm making a big deal out of nothing. But in my mind, I can see you saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to work out. And just really like, here's the vision. And Dad said, okay. Going and borrowing the money, finding an investor. I mean, you kind of like hit all the points that we talked about in another episode of, you got to go down all your avenues. You got to sell your vision. People have to see it. And obviously it's worked out. It worked out for you. And then the affirmation part.
He's an investor. He's an investor to this day. Like, anytime I have a project that's going on, like, he is an ongoing investor, and also a mentor. He owns a he has a huge company in the city where they create the infrastructure for highways. So it's fabulous having him in my corner.
Yeah, I just want, again, just some great points here. I mean, I don't want to pass over, having a business coach. I mean, that is just a great investment of resources to have someone who, can hold you accountable. I mean, the big benefit of having a business coach is that accountability, of, saying, hey, declare these things, declare $45,000. That's what you need, put that vision up, put those Post-it notes up. I mean, having someone, just really invest in you that way is a really important part of this. So we've heard business coach, we've heard Misty say mentor. Again, mentor is very important, because those can be two different things. Having a business coach and having a mentor can be two different things, and should be two different, really, types of investments, into you. So that's really great that you did that. And then, like we said, having those different ways of finding money to, start your business, and it all starts with that vision. And I know, my kids, Misty, anytime. They know they can come to me, but they know they need to come to me with a plan. They need to, don't come to me and say, Dad, I need money. Come to me and say, Dad, I have this idea. I have this, vision. And then, sell me on that, and so that's critical for entrepreneurs to really be able to go out there. Because if you have that vision and you're passionate about it, you'll find people that will buy into your passion. That's for sure. So
Yeah.
very good. Good stuff, Misty. Thank you.
And Misty has a very strong customer base. I mean, just like the Facebook alone is like
They are
unbelievable.
very loyal. They're super
Unbelievable.
loyal. They're amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, you've opened up your storefront. I mean, and it seems like, from what I could tell, that people that were buying things from when you were making them into your kitchen, now you've opened your storefront, and if I remember correctly,
yeah,
right. If I remember correctly, I feel like maybe you won Best of Gloucester County, like bakery or dessert shop before you were even open. Am I before your storefront was open?
Yeah, you're right. Because I was running Devour out of my house for 4 years before I opened the storefront. And I was super active on social media. Don't ask me how. I mean, I was running this business illegally out of my kitchen, and I was all over the internet. I don't know how they never picked up on me or targeted me. I'm really not sure, but I'm glad that they didn't. So when I, had the storefront, they started doing the contest, and I called them and said, if I have a storefront and I have a business, even though if I'm not open yet, am I eligible? And he was like, absolutely. So I was like, all right, let's do this thing. So my customers, they voted, and we've won 5 years in a row. But yeah,
so you won Best of Gloucester County before your storefront was even technically open to the public.
Obscene.
And yeah, well, I think it's also a testimony of, earlier you mentioned you saw where, clients were underserved, customers were underserved. Obviously, you have a customer base that is just, they are ride or die.
They are.
Devour, Misty, which is amazing. What do you think contributes to, to that? Besides, obviously, the desserts are outstanding. Like the desserts, you made my daughter's, when we were going to find out if my first child was a boy or a girl, like you made that cake that we cut, so there is, what do you think contributes to, obviously, besides the desserts being amazing, what do you think contributes to the customer base?
Oh, that's a really great question. I don't know. I think maybe I'm just relatable. I feel like people that talk to me can sense that I am always who I say I am. I am never going to be somebody different. I'm going to tell you the highs. I'm going to tell you the lows. If I've got something going on, I'm going to keep them informed via Facebook and entertainment. I feel like I'm entertaining. I'm good at writing copy. I don't know. I just have a natural connection with my customers. That is, I am as ferociously, in their corner as they are in mine.
100%.
And nugget alert.
Well, and I think that you also have a way of taking maybe some things that could be construed as negative and making them a positive, which is another attribute of really that you really need to embrace as an entrepreneur, because you have taken some negative Facebook comments or reviews, I should say, which, like in our word, it's like, oh God, we don't want a negative review on our Facebook. Like we don't want a 1-star review because we just take it so harshly. And you have taken negative comments or feedback or, what have you, and turned it around to actually not only be entertaining, but profitable, right? Because we got a negative comment about one of our cakes. And I feel like you named it after the woman that left the comment, right?
I did, yeah. So I will say that when I worked for the security company, I did their, their Facebook, and they would always get upset if they were getting a terrible review or if somebody was saying something bad, and they would automatically want to delete it. And I would always be like, no, don't delete it, because listen, if somebody's a jerk off, right? Like, I'm not allowed to say jerk off, sorry. If somebody is, then all of their friends already know that they're a jerk, right? They already know. So by this person commenting, he's just opening you up to 50 more people that would not have even seen your brand to begin with. And his friends already know about him. They're not worried about what he's saying. They're just having the visibility, which is I think what some people don't understand. And I get it. It's painful. Like, it is a punch in the gut when someone gives you a review like that. If it's a valid review and I have done something that's incorrect, or, listen, I'm going to bend over backwards to make it right. I will legit drive to the store, bake you a cake, and drive it to your house at 6:00 at night. Like, seriously, that's the level of service that I provide. But if it's a nonsense review, then I just don't have any time for it. And I will have a lot of fun at your expense. Yeah. So we ran a special called Frida Hates Our Strawberry Shortcake. It was a 2-day special. Someone had, gave us does not recommend my bakery because the strawberry shortcake was ugly, which is, it's basically like cake with whipped cream and strawberries piled on top in a heap. Like, it's phenomenal. It's so good, but she hated it. So, and I thought it was ridiculous. So I remember I'm in the supermarket and walking past a flat of strawberries, which I buy flats of strawberries on the daily. It's not abnormal. And I just thought, Frida hates our strawberry shortcake. And I was like, oh man, like, should I even do this? Can I be that person that runs a special like this? So I thought about it for a couple days, talked to, which I normally don't do, but I did reach out to my business coach and thought, is this more of my concern was, am I bringing in negative energy by running a special like this? So I was very, careful the boundaries that I was going to cross with that, because I didn't want to necessarily then also have a flood of people complaining about my product. And you have to be careful in that respect. Right. But I, decided to do it. I ran this 2-day special and we sold 100 strawberry shortcakes in 2 days. So I was laughing all the way to the bank with 538 likes, hundreds of comments, 28 shares. I still have people stopping me in the supermarket to tell me that they think it's so funny when I rip people to shreds. Yeah. In the nicest, bless your heart kind of way.
Yeah, no, it was like you said, it was there was almost like good for you, because, like you said, if there's a valid concern in your business that you did something wrong, most entrepreneurs and most people, at least that are in our circle that are running businesses, they're going to want to make it right. They don't want someone to be left with a negative feeling about their service, their product, their experience. But when it's just outside of you're just not even
first world
being reasonable. Right.
You're not even being reasonable. World problems. Your cake's not, your strawberry shortcake isn't pretty enough. Stop.
Right. And so to turn that into all right, you know what? This is not even a valid issue, but let's have some fun with it. Let's figure out a way of,
they loved it. They had so much fun. The customers, they were messaging me that they were in bed laughing their heads off with their husbands. You know what I mean? You brought everyone such joy. So yes. Thank you, Frida. Thank you for your negative review.
Yes, that's right.
So that's a great story. I want to make sure we cover a couple things before we run out of time. One is, again, just going back to the social media, Misty. So what would be, 1 or 2 things that you would recommend entrepreneurs, do with their social media? What do you find to be the most important or top 2 things to make your social media the most effective for your business?
Well, I would say, that's a great question. Jack, you got me stumped on this one. In terms of reviews, I would say, definitely focus on the positive ones. And I will give you another nugget that doesn't come from me. And it comes from Anthony Marino, who owns Marino's Pizzeria in Mulligan Hill. And that was that whenever you get a complaint, there is always a thread of truth in it somewhere that you need to be paying attention to, which has been good for me because it allows me to kind of take a step back and not take things so personally. So that would be my recommendation around that.
So how about, so do you make sure on your social media that you are doing something every day?
No, I really don't. I mean, I try to post a lot, but I'm super ADD. I am all over the place. So I can sometimes not even keep up with myself. So I try, like, if it's my business is easy, right? Like, I have beautiful cakes and desserts to take pictures of. It's really easy for me to take pictures and engage my customers, where I can't necessarily say that advice would follow the same suit for anyone in any business, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that does
But
make
we
a lot
can
of
all
sense.
agree that social media is super important in any business. And I think that that is really the key is, if you are an entrepreneur, if you have a business, social media has to play a huge role in that.
Well, and I think the other thing that, what maybe Misty isn't taking credit for is that, yes, you can post beautiful pictures of desserts, but you also engage with your customer base and say, hey, if I did something like this, what do you think about it? Like you did a Mother's Day special of, I forget what it was called, like the
The
cheese
brunch
and
board.
meats.
Yeah,
Yes,
brunch
thank
board.
you. So like I remember, you saying like, if I did this at this price with these things, would you guys want to do it? And it was like 100 comments. People were like, yeah, I'll come pick it up that Sunday. I want two more. Like people were placing, but I feel like you also engage with like, if I did this, or hey, I thought this was funny. Like you just kind of like put out there into the world, like, hey, I saw this, I thought this was hilarious, and people comment. Or so it's not just like, what you are particularly selling, but it's really like you are the brand. You are like how you operate, who you are as a person. You're constantly putting that out on social media. And again, I think that's what people are, part of what people are drawn to. Like, dang, I just really like Misty. Like, I don't get to see her very much, but I just really like her. And then she has these bomb desserts, and she's just out here like doing her thing, and it's just something very admirable and respectable. And like you said, people, see themselves in you. So I think that's the other part when you talk about social media, Jack, is that it's not just the service or the product, it's the engaging of the clients and the customers.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I like that. That's a great idea, Misty. You're almost doing like a market survey using social media. So that's good. The second thing I wanted to talk about was opening a second location.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Whoa, Jennifer's gonna love this.
Give it to
So
me.
that was another, like, I was bursting at the seams on holidays. Like the holidays, I have a 200 square foot kitchen in my location in Mantua. We just couldn't, people wanted cake. First, they wanted cupcakes. So we, started baking cupcakes out of the store, but we just didn't have any room. And the holidays were just, I mean, like, I didn't know how I was going to get through one more holiday with the manufacturing space that I had at the store. So I, so I started to think about opening a second location. I'm going to say, I want to get my timeline right here. In August, I started to journal about, what that would look like. We just drew a picture of like, if I had this space, what would it look like? What would I want to do in it? Like what things would we be performing here? What highlights am I not having in this Mantua store that I'd like to have there? And I just drew it out and started to, scout out places. I thought maybe Glassboro would be a location. So I, found a realtor and started to look at places. This is like, I'm thinking it's going to take me 18 months, right? Like in my mind, I'm jotting all this down for like an 18-month projection. And very quickly in September, one of my vendors reached out to me. They had a location in, their only storefront was in Aston. It was called Viso's Italian Desserts. I bought their cannoli from them. He's a old Italian, part of the Termini family, had this banging cannoli that I didn't know how to make it. He made his own shells. So, I sold their product, and she reached out to me and said, we're closing the store and do you want to come take a look at it? So I was like, okay. I had been in their like bakery storefront before, but I had never like toured the entire building. And I went over, and when I walked through, I was flabbergasted because it was everything that I had drawn in everything that was in my picture
Wow.
was this place. So I operate from a very guttural space, right? So if something feels right for me, then I do it, even if it doesn't make any sense on paper, even if it, you know what I mean? Like I have all of these objections, even if the people around me are like, what are you, crazy? If it feels right, I have to do it. Like there's just not another option for me. So I remember going home and, you know, my husband was so patient with me for, you know, like I really, when I was running Devour, Jennifer probably knows, I don't want to put myself in your position, but it's not like you're making $1 million, right? Like you're working a lot and you're reinvesting in your company and you're reinvesting in your business. And it doesn't necessarily matter if your price point is really high. You're in it. You're investing your time and energy to build this thing, right? And it's not necessarily about money. So I had just at that time started to take a paycheck in Mantua.
Wow.
And here I am telling my husband that I'm going to open up another store and basically put myself back in the same position. But I just knew that I knew it was right. And I remember saying to him, like, listen, like, I know this sounds crazy, but I just know that I'm supposed to do it. I just know I'm supposed to do it. And he was like, okay, well then, you know, do it. And everything happened much the same that it did the first time, where everything just fell into place as it should, because it was right. Because it was the right thing.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's because that's one of the things that, you know, can be a challenge for some businesses. They can, you know, they open up a business in a particular location and things really are going well, and they find, okay, well, let me go duplicate this, you know, in another town, or, you know, 2 or 3 towns over, that type of thing, only to find that for whatever reason, demographics or whatever, the second location never seems to prove out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're totally right, Jack. Because, and I will say that would be true about my current model. Like my Mantua store outsells my Aston store threefold, at minimum threefold. However, I wouldn't be able to do the volume that I do in Mantua without the store in Aston, because we do all of the baking there and we do all of the chocolate work in New Jersey, and then we swap. So I wouldn't be able to hit the limit, you know, the maximum sales that I'm hitting in the Mantua store, if not for the Aston store. And that's, you know, Mantua definitely pays for Aston, because it's not self-sufficient on its own yet. However, we've only been there 2 years, you know, and I've been in this business long enough to know that things really start to change between year 2 and year 3, and year 3 and year 4. And once people get to know that you're there and, you know, come to expect, you know, that they're going to get great dessert from you and they can trust you. It takes time.
Well, that's good, because that's exactly right. I think in your case, again, really outstanding, you know, business points here. One was the journaling and kind of drawing it out, you know, and really putting it on paper. It is amazing when you put something on paper, whether it's writing out a vision or writing out your business plan, you know, rather than just having it rattling around in your brain all the time, getting it down on paper really does seem to be an accelerant, you know, for, you know, those things starting to happen. So that's great that you did that. And it's amazing, isn't it, how that second location just kind of fell in right almost to your vision that you put on paper. That's an amazing.
And like I had said, that was August. I started to have the idea, and we were open for business on December the 10th.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. You know, and then again, to recognize that, you know, this wasn't, in your case, just about duplicating your Mantua store. It was about being able to grow the brand in total, because you needed that additional capacity to do that. So, you know, because of having the Aston location, it seems like that gave you the capacity to grow Mantua far more than you would have ever been able to do. So that's some great insights. And the other, again, great lesson that you're bringing up is that reinvesting. Again, we did a podcast on that, is how important it is for entrepreneurs to reinvest. And what we'll find many times, and you're a great example of how people, they they start that business and they're living lean. They're not taking a paycheck. Jennifer does know those days. You're not taking a paycheck. All of a sudden you get your business to the point you can start taking some money. And boy, I tell you, that's where a lot of entrepreneurs make their mistake, because it's actually right at that point they need to do what you did, and that's reinvest. To get that next level of growth, you have to make that investment. And it's tough, because now you're feeling like, I wouldn't mind taking some money, because, I wouldn't mind some lifestyle improvements over here maybe, and doing some things lifestyle wise, but that can be a critical mistake for entrepreneurs because once you start feeding money from your business over to the lifestyle side of the equation, it's tough to bring it back at that point. It's tough to bring it back because you're making payments on, the nicer car or the bigger house or the room addition or the new boat or whatever that may be. And it's hard then to find the resources to reinvest. So congratulations and great job to your husband for being supportive there for that too. That's good stuff.
Well, that was going to be the next thing I wanted to just briefly ask you about, because in the midst of all of this, you have a husband, you have kids, like, so, and I feel like I read a post probably many years ago that you wrote on Facebook about, you had written out what your goals were. And maybe this was for the direct sales, maybe it was for Devour, but you had written out your goals, and then you sat your family down and said, hey, listen, kids and husband, these are the goals I have. This is what I need this is how I need you to help me to get to those goals. And if we meet these goals, these are the things we get to do, or the things we get to experience and whatnot. And that was probably, again, many, many years ago that I read that post that I still remember. And then you saying today, going to my husband and saying, so I know I'm making some money now, but I'm really not. I'm going to go.
That's all about them.
Right. It's, so how do you, how do you kind of balance all of that out? I mean, what kind of support do you get from your family? I mean, obviously you get a lot, but
I think it's a little different for me because my kids are older, like my daughter is 20, my son is 19. I do have a 15-year-old as well. So, I really don't have any space to talk about parenting because there were really a couple years where I was completely absent and just so immersed in my business. And if I had it to do over again, I would definitely make a lot of changes with how I, balanced my family into my work life, because I kind of feel like I'm a worker bee, right? Like I am naturally always moving at 150 miles an hour.
Right.
So, I don't really have much to say about how great of a parent. I didn't really handle that all that well, but my kids are still alive, so.
That's right. They're alive. They look like they're doing all right.
Independent. I will say that my children are crazy independent. They always have been.
Okay. Well, those are good attributes, especially in the world in which we're living in. So that's good. I think that's a challenge that we all face. Like right now, my children are very little, and it's like the blessing and the curse. They need me for everything. They need me to get the food, the juice, the diaper change, the clothes, the bath. They need me for every single thing. And I find myself saying, if I can get them to be just a little more independent, then I'll have more time to do this. But then it's like, once they're independent, then they're independent.
You just stop feeding them.
Right.
That's all. Yes. You just stop. I remember my girlfriend coming over when my son was 18 months old, and he was standing on the kitchen counter getting cereal out of the cabinet for himself. And she was like, what is happening here? And I'm like, this is my life. This is my kid. I could be dead in the corner of my house for a week and my kids would function as normal.
Well, you know what? Now that you say that, my kids do go in the refrigerator and take whatever they want, and I yip at them. I'm like, get out of my refrigerator! Get out! Now I just need to be like, yes, get it, do it, just throw your trash away. I'll deal with the mess when you clean up. I'm going about this completely wrong. And, so, kind of the last thing that we've mentioned, we're living in COVID-19 right now, and business doesn't look per usual, per normal, but that's a challenge, but that can also be some opportunities. How tell me how. I know that we had a small Facebook Messenger exchange. I could be wrong. Maybe you were having just a small little freak out. Hopefully when we have those exchanges, I feel like some of the time it's like, can they do that? Is it legal? Do I have to do this? I'm like, well, the government can do that. I don't know if we have to follow it, but let's just breathe. Let's just take a moment. Let's just breathe and figure it out. But so tell me kind of what have been the opportunities that you have seen since.
Yeah, I mean, like I really just kind of took a step back when everything was said and done, and I really kind of viewed everyone else as going into panic mode, which is that is not a natural state for me. Even when things are completely chaotic, I kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I can hover above and see bigger picture. So I wasn't panicked at all when all of this started to go down. I just was watching everyone else freak out and thinking these people are going to make all sorts of mistakes because they're panicking. And I am staying in my lane and doing what I do. So it was for sure a transition. I don't know. We like I said earlier, we were the first ones to close the storefront before the, restrictions had even come around. And I immediately switched my model to, we opened up our online ordering so we could do a website, and we started delivering, which is something that, we didn't do before. So I really looked at it as an opportunity to make the changes in my business that I was dragging my feet on changing. I was really resistant to slashing my menu. My menu had gotten so expansive that it was overwhelming. Like it was just a nonstop, constant, rat race to get this menu done. And I knew that I needed to slim it, but I didn't know how I was going to do that. And this just presented the perfect opportunity for me to, take 10 steps back with my menu, to just get smarter about the money that we were spending and how and what we were making. And then also to add online ordering and add delivery. And then in the meantime, we had also started doing these Kids in the Kitchen kit. So I run a program called Kids in the Kitchen. I have kids locally from ages 7 to 13 come in and do classes in my kitchen with me. It's usually very small scale, 6 to 8 kids max. And those kids, I was just thinking about them, like, what are they going to have nothing to do, at home. So I just put a kit together. I think the first kit that I did was like a cupcake decorating kit, and we sold a ton of them. So I was like, okay, well, this is what the people want. It's really just finding what the people want at any given moment. And of course, during this crisis, that changed significantly. So they were looking for ways to entertain their children. So we have, completely stepped into a new realm of a revenue stream in regards to these Kids in the Kitchen kits that we are putting out. And every single week we put out 1 to 2 kits. And yeah, they've done really well for us.
Yeah, I think that really is amazing. Another nugget alert. I think this is our 4th nugget alert on this episode, but
she set a standard. She set a standard for nugget alerts.
Right. I thought I was pretty good. She's blowing me away. But that staying in my lane, understanding what your core business is and making sure that you stay in that. But yet then you went on and you innovated by staying in your lane. You're still all about fantastic desserts and high quality. It was still all about that. But now we got to figure out from an innovation standpoint, how do we stay in our lane but do it somewhat differently, with the deliveries and the curbside. And I love that with the Kids in the Kitchen. I mean, that is just really thinking outside the box, and that's going to benefit you significantly, just because, again, that's an investment back into your customers, really, is what that is, because that there is a need there and there is something. So really, really fantastic stuff, Misty.
Yeah, and I will say that was scary. It was, doing the kids kits was scary because there was so much uncertainty about the virus that, we had gloves and, like everything we touched had gloves, and we were constantly, washing our hands. But, from my place, it was scary because I knew that they wanted it and I wanted to give them what they wanted, but I also, like, God forbid someone in my store gets sick, and then, you know what I mean? Then what happens after that? So it was really kind of like I had to force myself to step outside of that fear that I had to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Continuously, week after week, because as the weeks went on, it got scarier and scarier.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. As things kind of progressed, it was like, oh my goodness, what in the world are we doing?
Yeah.
But I also liked what you said that, you know, when things are in panic mode, being able to kind of rise above that and have the bigger picture and say, you know what, we're not going to panic. We're not going to, you know, we're going to just kind of watch and see and take it step by step. I will say that that's definitely an attribute that Jack has as well, that people look to him, that, you know, when everything's going on, people look to him to say, all right, Jack, kind of tell us what we need to do and we'll follow suit. And, you know, Jack is always the even keel, always, okay, we're going to figure it out. We're going to stay in business. We're going to get through this just like we've gotten through other things. This just looks a little bit different. And so I think that is definitely that is one thing that if you're going to be in business, to say, you got to stay the even keel. You got to be able to look above everything that's happening in the right here and the right now and look for the opportunities, look to stay calm, because people will follow suit in that. You know, like if Jack's freaking out over here, I guarantee you every agent that looks to him is completely freaking out. And that doesn't serve anyone. That doesn't move anyone forward. So that was, I like that word. You need to be able to look above all of that.
I just go home and freak out in my basement. Nobody can believe me. I still freak out, but I just don't show it in public. Right.
Yeah, you can't do that.
It's been great, Misty. This has been awesome.
Yeah, this has been wonderful. So I have one last question before we wrap things up. If you had any advice, Misty, to give, you know, any entrepreneur that's looking to start a business, that's in their early years of business, what would be your ultimate piece of advice to anyone out there?
Ooh, I am going to go rogue and say, stop listening to everyone else. Because I feel like so many people are so influenced by other people's opinions about what they should be doing when no one has any insight into what you should be doing, really, except for you. Like, you have the ultimate knowledge about whether something's wrong or right.
So good.
I agree.
We're on Zoom right now. Nobody's gonna be able to see, but I've got goosebumps again. Okay, got goosebumps again. Wonderful. Well, Misty, thank you for being a part of the podcast. Thank you for working through our slight technical difficulties in the beginning. Thank you for being a client. You've hands down have been one of the most wonderful people for me to work with in my career, and I greatly appreciate your business. Greatly appreciate, you know, just everything that you put out into the universe. I don't know if you remember, you used to teach a spin class at Super Fitness.
Oh, I remember. Girl, I need to get my ass back in the spin class. I'm like up 20 pounds from this COVID stuff. I'm out of here.
Yeah, this COVID-19 situation is, you know, affecting the waistline. But it was so funny because it wasn't you, but another instructor had missed their class, and I was taking the class. And so I was like, well, I have my iPod. Okay, let's talk about iPod so you know how many years ago that was. I've got my iPod, so I'll teach the class. And I wrote it on Facebook, and you were like, you were the one that taught the spin class just randomly? And I was like, I did. I just taught a spin class. Never did it in my life. But you were like, that is so awesome. And I was like, you're like, that's something I would do.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my God, I love it.
Oh, good stuff. All right. Well, thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode of the Business to Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. And until we can be together again, everybody stay safe. We'll talk to you soon. We want to thank you for listening today. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave us a positive review. And we want to say thank you to our sponsors, Dempsey Weiss & Associates and J Faith Hair Studio.